So I meant to do this like 2 weeks ago as a response. It was an interesting thread of information that I was exposed to, a thread of perspective, and it came from a former student. I pride myself in keeping relationships with students or former students who would actually like to, know me as a person because I value them as a person, as a teacher. It's always been my philosophy to value my students as individuals first. So I can always learn from them while knowing that I'm going to transfer a set of information that is necessary for them to achieve or be marked accomplished or completed for a specific subject area or topic. Anyways, this was from a female student. I thought this was a very interesting thread. A lot of it, I have a variety of male and female students who are Republican, Democrat, liberal, conservative, uh, uh, um, anti this, pro that. And so this one specifically got me because I thought it was very interesting. The topic was on Twitter, and I like Twitter because it's really an open forum where you can just say whatever you want to say. And this specific topic came from a person. If you want to follow the tweet, you can find me on Twitter. My Twitter name is my name. So, anyways, it says, Men of Twitter, what are the downsides of being a man? We discuss the downsides of being a woman frequently, but what's going on with you lovely guys? And I thought that was interesting because, when I first saw it, my initial response was downsides. And my response was, I guess doing dumb stuff impulsively, literally and figuratively. I don't know. And then I read it. I read it because I like to read what people have to say because, again, I feel like Twitter is sort of an unencompassed, unhinged, liberalized, free space of thought. That's why the president uses it. Well, President Trump uses it because I'm in another country, right? And why the President Trump uses it so freely and has so much power because it makes him seem more real to people because he says whatever he feels. And so the flawedness of who he is raw on Twitter, and so people have the emotions and the 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 realness of in the momentness. It's why I think Twitter refuses to have a edit button because it's raw, it's real. Either you erase it completely and write it again, or you say what you say and live with the errors. And on Twitter, I live with my errors. I'd say 90% of the time, and I've loved Twitter for some time because of just the rawness and the openness. There was another tweet I saw today that I'll cover in a minute, but I just want to look at some of these responses that I was unexpectedly. I don't know if surprise is the right word because that's unexpectedly, but I didn't expect to see these things. And like for instance, this one guy said we have very few avenues for to emotionally express ourselves. We're supposed to fit this stereotype of being tough and only wanting to touch if it comes to sex. I want to hug and had pats, and damn it. And it was funny because the guy, he said it matter of factly, and if you heard him say it would have sounded like he was joking. But there's a realness, there's a sincerity behind what he's saying. Like for instance, I've recently had a thought every now and then, probably once a month, of man, I just want her to like me, right? Just to like me, and it feels so rare because I mean, I accept that there are people who like you for what you offer them, and everyone's like that. But it's seldom, more recently, outside of like dealing with students in the classroom when you're teaching stuff and they like your personality, where I've met people who like you for who you are. Just like, I like that guy. I just want to, I like his presence. I don't necessarily get anything from it, but he's being genuine, and I like him. And dealing with females, no, or women. I don't know what's the correct way to say it. But anyways, dealing with the woman sex, I feel like a lot of people just want me for what I can give them, or they tolerate time around me for what I can give them. So so that's why I feel like I just wish she would want me for me. Like she just liked me because of who I am. And so that's why it's interesting because there's a person that I find interesting and I like them just for who they are. I don't want them to change. I don't want them to be different. I like the perception of who I believe they are and what I see and what I perceive based on what they put out there. And so going back to the thread, the next line is this guy responds to that and says, "Women lie all day long about how they want their men to open up. The very second you do that, women will never look at you or respect, admire you the same ever again. Women can choose to be strong. Men have to be strong or else." And I can understand that. I think that's a great commentary because I've been in places where women are like, "Yo, you're not emotional. You don't say stuff," and I've been accused of being sort of stoic or few or slim in emotions. And then when you come at them, they don't know how to deal with it because they're so unfamiliar with a man being emotional verbally or even physically, be it tears or whatever. The only time, like, even if a man gets hurt, like, he can holler, but having tears in his eyes, it's like, yo, that's soft. And it's funny because we all have tear ducts, but we're not supposed to use ours. I guess it's the equivalent of women having breasts and milk coming out of it, but men have breasts and no milk come out of it, right? It's sort of that equivalent. And so there was more because the response to that guy's last response was, "I think you've been shopping for your women at the wrong store. I'm so sorry that this has been your experience. It must have been painful for you. You deserve better, and I promise it's out there." And it's funny because, again, it's about where you meet women and how you meet them and their perception of what a man is supposed to be. And it's contrived. This is why I think there's a statistic that most people meet their life mate, their soulmate, their partner, or whatever, or just the person they marry and stay in a long term relationship in their formative years in high school or college, and they stay with them because there's a familiarity of struggle, neighborhood, environment that keeps you together. Whereas meeting people from other places of walks of life, it's like, well, how do you meet them? How do you connect to these people so they can know the real quote unquote you? And I think it's interesting because you don't know the real you because the real you changes every day. There's no way, and I'm being 1,000% honest. There's no way that this person I am is who I was a year ago. I know that for sure. And so 6 months ago, I was unlikely the same person. So it's it's interesting because there's sort of a level of normalized sexism that goes with behaviors associated with men and women of what's acceptable. And it's weird because the guy responded to her and said, "It isn't amazing how Caroline can imply not all women and get thank yous and likes. No one's slamming her for woman slaying, but sure, we're crazy, violent ones. Thank you for fostering hope." And so he feels that, he maybe he's in the wrong place, but he's feeling some kind of way, and it's just crazy because it's an interesting thing that people, even men, don't really care in general what men feel. The only time we care, or it is perceived as people care what we feel, is when we're offended and we're violent, and so we have to have that response of if it's there's a certain way we're supposed to act. There's certain things that are expected. Like, someone threw a statistic up that 80% of suicides are men, 93% of workplace fatalities are by men, 76 of homicide victims are men, 61% of homeless people are men, 97% of combat deaths are men, 16% of winners of child custody cases are men. It's just we have to deal with whatever the world says is normal for us to feel, that women are 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 the ones, the bearers of feelings, and they kind of sort of their responses dictate what is okay for us to feel and what's not okay. So it's funny because a response to that those statistics was so pretty much 100% of which is a consequence of behavior, policies, and actions of other men. We need more women in positions of power, and I think that lends itself to a lot where the rules are made very often by men, and so because the rules are made by men, that we have determined the masculinity when we say things like "man up" and other things like that, and it's really weird because men then further classify themselves based on those things. There's a classism that goes with that on how manly you are, how much pain you can take, how how much you can provide, how sexual you are, things like that. And I think it's a crazy thing where I just don't even understand when or what is okay about men expressing certain things or when men can express. It's it's uh it's a thing that probably should be addressed more, but I mean, men would have to tell women, and that makes them look weak, and men would have to tell men in a serious manner, and that would make men look weak. So there seems to be a calling for a change in perspective, narrative, culture about how we should as men should deal with emotional issues that we have. And I think it's interesting because recently in the U.S. news you look at there was a bomber or it's a guy who sent bombs to prominent people, and it was a man, and it was highly emotional man who was unable to or didn't have a forum or a venue to express himself, so he did it in a violent way. And so, like, for instance, there's a theory out there about beating children and fathering kids, and should you do that anymore? Should men be physical with their children? Are they the ones seen as the one who are the givers of punishment and discipline? And it normally comes from violence. And the funny thing about it is that one of the most significant forms of sort of fixing behavior is mental. I mean, there's the mental ability to outsmart people. I mean, we see this every day in politics and society. Basically, people are mind fucking other people, and that's what keeps them in their place. Like, for instance, it stays in my psyche about the definition of a boss, like how a person sees a person as a boss or a supervisor. Like, this person is my boss, and is it a subconscious way of saying, this person holds or wields power over me. They have influence over me, and so I have to, based on my desire to survive, uh, coalesce to whatever they want. And it's just weird because a lot of people, there's that statistic of most people leave their jobs based on their boss or supervisor, and it's interesting because the your boss supervisor's ability to convey the emotions about the status of work, the status of their position, the status of the success, and how it makes them feel is transferred in their behavior of how they supervise or lead people. And I think that plays a role in how I manage people. I've been fortunate to be a leader of sports teams and of people in different arenas, and I think it it matters, like being aware of your emotions. I sometimes am aloof about emotions, but I'd like to live in the perspective of people feel things differently than me, so I make it an effort to do that. And it's interesting because when people talk about, well, lifespans, how men tend to die 6 years sooner than women, and why. And normally it's associated with stress, which comes from emotion, or occupation, which is attached to emotion of success. And it's important because, for instance, being married, there's this thought that men shouldn't be, or should be limited in their function in the process of the ceremony itself. Like, for instance, when I got married in the past, because my ex was unable to be here, I had to do most of the planning portion. We had discussions, but then I did much of the logistics things and the choosing of things. And that's weird, and I think that my wedding was a pretty freaking fantastic event. I mean, it was based on a premise that she wanted, but it was executed by me. Whereas there's other people I know that have had weddings, and they're like, the groom job is just to pay for it and to show up. And while I pass no judgment on that, because some men are not interested in that, because a lot of those men who have that ideal or mentality, the reason they have that is because they didn't want a wedding ceremony anyways. It's not because they didn't want to be married, they're just not interested in the pomp and circumstance of the whole thing. So it's a matter. It makes sense for them to say, "I'll just pay for it. I'll be there. I'm supporting you. This is my way of showing you I care." And you get what you want. And what it does is it creates a stress for that woman that the man isn't intentionally putting on them, but the woman tends to take on themselves, in my opinion, because of their dream. Like, I don't know if men in general dream of what their wedding day is going to look like, but I've heard plenty of stories of what women dreaming what their wedding would look like, and I think that says a lot about goals in society, and how men are just participants in life a lot of times when it comes to well, not even participants, they're onlookers in life when it comes to events and things of emotion. So to go back to the beginning of it, where it says, men of Twitter, what are the downsides of being a man? My original statement was sort of laughter. It was to take it lightly, not to be serious, to take it as a joke, and say there are no downsides. But man, there are a significant number of men who live life and they see a downside, and they don't express that downside, and it's amazing, because I am blown away by the fact that I didn't know men live that, and I don't think I'm in a place, or nor will it ever be my place, to fix the world. But I think that's worthy of a discussion amongst men. It's the reason why our politics are the way they are. It's the reason why our relationships are the way they are. Is because we have a specific subscribed to way that men and women should be, and what is and what isn't manly. It's really, really interesting. And so that tweet I was talking about, on why the expression on Twitter is what it is this person says, and again, you can find the tweets in my likes. It says, Twitter makes you love people you've never met, and Facebook makes you hate people you've known your whole life. And, well, first of all, that lends itself to saying there are no strangers in life. But it also says that we become so comfortable with what our life has given us that sometimes we accept what's there, and we don't really make an effort to change. And these social network platforms, such as Facebook and Twitter, are basic exercises in how life could be for us if we took it in a different way, where the way we deal with our friends and families out of conditioning, and a quote unquote normalcy that we want in our lives. And that's Facebook. And Twitter is, hey man, there's people out there talking about something, and I like what they're talking about. Let me talk to them for a bit, and it may only be for a moment, but man, I love the hell out of their opinion and their comment. And these people are raw because I can have a fake avatar, and I don't have to know you from somebody else to be connected to you and stuff like that. And Twitter is not asking for all your personal information like Facebook is. And so it allows you to create the image of you of who you want to be, which is interesting because it goes back to my original thought of the president of the United States, Donald Trump, being on Twitter and being who he's been for some time on Twitter for years. And I think that's really, really cool to understand that what a person is on Twitter is them getting to the point because you only have a certain number of characters that you can do it, and them being as raw as they can be on purpose. It's like Twitter is, hey, let's get rid of the PC of this and just get to the bare facts. Even though sometimes you need context with your bare facts, but it makes people get to the point. And I think sometimes that reveals an honesty of a person that should maybe be shared with the world, but it also should be shared with that person because sometimes people don't know they are that raw or that they want to be that person. So I think that tweet about just sort of understanding that what are the downsides of being a man is a really, really powerful thing. And I didn't even take it seriously, and that probably might have been a downside of a man because I thought I was living the wealth of being a man because I don't have menstrual cycles or emotional public overt emotional changes, and my life is black and white. It's math oriented men's stuff, and it's really, really interesting. I think as I build this again, this podcast for me is a time capsule. Maybe in the future, some other people will join in my time capsule and challenge me because I'm all about being challenged. I don't necessarily think I'm right. I've looked at the things I've said in the past, and it could be the yesterday past or the years ago past, and I've altered myself and understood the magnification that needed to be shined on my subject and helped me see that, hey man, you're missing a part, or there's a part to that you just don't understand, or there's been other information that's come into my life that says, hey, you need to look at that and understand that there's more to it than that. And so the downside of being a man is, whoa, it's crazy because the funny thing is, it says they talk about the downsides of being a woman. While I don't think I talk about that, I can see the downsides sort of from my perspective, probably because I'm not a woman, of being a woman. Well, the perceived downsides of being a woman, and it's mind blowing that I can find the negatives in someone else, but I never, or I tend to seldomly look at the downsides of being me. And I think I'm a pretty awesome person, so that's probably why I don't think there are downsides of me being me. But there are things that we can improve or that we will likely alter in the future based on review. But I accept that I always present the best of me in the moment, and even if it's an ugly, unrelenting or negative me, I believe I present the best of me in that moment, and then I can go back and look at the next moment knowing it's different and be a better me for than I was in the previous moment. So I think that's worthy of a conversation. Maybe I'll talk to somebody about it, or maybe I won't. But what I do know is there's things that are worthy of investigating about being a man that are often overlooked, and may even find some solutions to the things that we find struggling. So with that, I'm going to wrap it up, and I'm going to go back to watching my soccer and loving soccer because, soccer is the beautiful game. It's a man sport. It's kind of a little bit like basketball but on the floor. And if you disagree with me, so what? That's what I see. Peace.